Hi, welcome to Project Geospatial. I'm Adam Simmons, and here with me, special guest Mike McGowan of Skyris LLC. Is that correct, Mike?
That is correct. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, how about you give us a rundown of who you are exactly? I want to dive into your background a little bit, and then we can talk about Skyris.
Sure. Again, my name is Mike McGowan. I am the CEO and co-owner of Skyris LLC. The other co-owner is Willa Storr. He's been in the geospatial community ever since he was in the Air Force. So both of us have been intelligence professionals for kind of our whole adult lives. My own personal background, after high school, I joined the Marine Corps, where I got into signals intelligence and ultimately transferred over and became a recon Marine. After that, I got out and kind of immediately started in on the contractor life, and this was back in the mid 90s, so it wasn't a very common thing to go military to contractor like it is today. So I was a little bit of the outlier. Most of the other people that I served with went on to do normal people jobs. Yeah. So you're talking, since the early '90s, I've been a part of the community in some way, shape, or form. Have been supporting NGA since probably around 2000. I think I did various different roles: systems engineer, trainer, scheduler. Ultimately, worked my way into the corporate side of things when I worked for another small business that has since been purchased and moved on. They're part of BAE now. That was a McClendon LLC. And after we were purchased a couple of times, myself and Will, who were co-workers for several years, decided, hey, let's start our own small business. Primarily, we do intelligence analytics services for NGA, Navy, and Special Operations Command. Pretty much the whole range of GeoInt analytic services, although our core concentration is in image science and data science. We're one of the premier providers of data science at NGA now. And I would say about 40% of the analytic services staff that we have is either an image scientist, data scientist, or analytic methodologist. So we've really transitioned into that side of the business where we're doing complex algorithm development, various different data processing, data storage, data transfer, making sense of data that comes in from various different sources. So that's really what the company has been focused on. And then in the last couple of years, we've made a significant shift over into the solution side. So we are now a developer of technologies, able to take what we were doing as far as inline algorithm developments, developing different modules, scripts, to make things work better for our customers. We brought a lot of that in-house, and we launched R&D programs where we're now pushing out technology solutions. So
that's an awesome overview. I appreciate it. So just to go back on your background a little bit, you said you have a history in signals. Do you incorporate some of the commercial signals that are going on right now with your platforms? You mentioned a lot about imagery, but I'm just kind of curious about all the emerging RF, commercial RF that's going out there too.
There is some, yes. And that's kind of one of the things that we pitch as a discriminator for Odin, our primary commercial solutions offering right now. It is an open content collection, analysis, formatting, and delivery system. It's all AI and machine learning driven, but we tend to take a broader look at what open source intelligence means than a lot of people do. Because when whenever you talk with people about, well, what is OSINT, or now the term is being expanded to open content. What does that really mean? And people automatically default to, okay, well, we're talking about reading news websites, blogs, and social media. You're ingesting Twitter posts. And that's a major portion of what's going on, because that's where a lot of the good relevant content is. But really, it's anything that is openly published, publicly available. If you can access it on the internet, that's open content. And so there is a lot of RF data. There's a lot of audio. There's a lot of video. There's a lot of what I would say non-traditional open content streams that are available that can provide a lot of very, very useful intelligence data. And when you geo-reference all of that, that becomes a geospatial system for open content. And really, Odin encompasses all of that. We've developed it so we can ingest virtually any commercially or publicly available data source. So yes, signals of various different type are a current data stream into Odin, and we're expanding in those directions today.
So in Odin itself, so having bringing in all these data points from around, well, the internet, as you just said, it's not necessarily just about aggregating all this data and organizing it, but what you decide to output as a business model too. So what is Odin specifically designed to output towards? It can take a more generalistic approach and say, answer questions for customers, but there's a lot you can do with combining that type of data, right? So what are you aiming to do initially, and what are you hoping to grow that into?
So what Odin does is it's not just a collection, it's not an aggregator.
Okay.
It does the first phase analysis for your customers. So really what we're doing is we're going through all of this content, and our collection pool is enormous. We have decided to basically apply AI and machine learning modules to every step of that first phase analysis process. So when you talk about what that process is, you start off with discovery and collection of your content. And discovery is a big part of that because if you're just working from static source lists, this is the finite view of the internet that you're reporting on, but the internet is out here. So you can, treat collection and discovery in a lot of different ways. And we've chosen to apply AI just to that portion. So you'll see, people talk about, well, what's a large pool of data sources? Is it 8 million websites? Is it 10 million websites? We add 170,000 plus new top level domains to our collection pool every single day. And as we stand now, we're over 96 million top level domains that are part of our collection pool. And I think there's estimated to be somewhere in the order of 330 million top level domains on the entire internet. So
That's incredible. So you're actually mining the internet, not too unlike how a search engine does, as they would index everything as well.
Absolutely. And that way we can go out and just discover what's out there, and not just on the internet, but also on the dark web. So, again, if you're kind of, you're working from hey, these are the known sources that we know are good. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good content there. But as we know, various different adversaries, or just, it doesn't have to be an adversarial thing. It can just be a potential data source that has relevant information that any customer might want. And it doesn't have to just be the intelligence community. It can be commercial clients, banks, people who are interested in financial information. You don't know what's out there until you go out and look. So we have an AI module that is just focused on discovery, and we're trying to grow our pool every single day. Now, a lot of that content is obviously not going to be relevant, but that's why we apply machine learning to that as well. If we're discovering relevant content during the AI analysis phase, then we go to those sites on a very high refresh rate. But you come across something and you index it and it's a cooking blog, we might not revisit that for a month or 6 months or however long that is, but we will in fact revisit it because that URL gets purchased by somebody else, or the IP address that it sits on might change hands, and now it's not a cooking blog anymore. It could be anything. It could be a jihadist web blog. You never know. So we'll go and refresh all of those sources, but it's our refresh rate is based off of how much relevant content we're getting from something. And when we're doing the analysis, that's all based off of what our customers want. The business model for Odin is that it is infinitely customizable. Every single customer can get their own version of Odin working just on their specific problem set. So we have the kind of the master AI system, but each of those modules can be replicated infinitely on a virtual machine on our network. So for instance, the analysis module, if you have a specific set of mission requirements that is very different than another customer, we simply, it's almost as simple as copy and paste. You get your own version of the AI that is now trained to focus on the type of events that you're interested in. So that takes you through analysis. and then it's formatting and delivery. So when you talk about what is the business model for that, we very firmly believe in data as a service delivery. There is nothing about Odin that ties you to our platform. We do have a very robust portal that you can go and access all of this, but you don't have to touch our portal. We export all of our products in the file formats that you use, in the tool sets that you use. So if you
I can tell you as a user, I love that concept. I hate, as a user, I despise being stuck in someone else's ecosystem, realizing that they don't have all the tools that I need to do my job and my workflow. So be able to take the data and use it within my tools, my applications, really goes a long way of fulfilling, sliding right into the mission. I think that's important there.
Right. And really what it helps us do is remain extremely agile as well. So when we're doing enhancements on, what Odin can do, either ingesting new sources, adding new capabilities, whatever it is we're doing, we can do that in real time. And all it's doing is it's pushing out enhanced data to you, the customer. You don't have to wait for a, software version update. You don't have to wrangle with your IT department to install a new version of the platform. None of that. So for example, if you're working a particular area of the world, say it's, say your AO is all of CENTCOM, and you have certain mission parameters, we train the AI to focus on those type of events for you. You tell us what tools you're using, and as long as it ingests an XML compatible file format, which virtually everything does today, we can export it in that file format, and we can make it look however you want as long as the tool supports that view. So the most common one we see is, KMZ files, because all geospatial analysts use KMZ files, and they readily export into most of the tools that permeate the community. So you talk about Google Earth Pro, ArcGIS, QGIS, whatever tool you're using to display KMZs. We just export a KMZ, and it contains all the data. It's all geospatially referenced. We push everything into that file, and we push that to you. You can download it from our portal, but let's say you're just sitting in an ops center. We would just be pushing that file to you, and we can continuously overwrite it. So every time you access it, you're really just getting the, hey, here's the from now to 24 hours ago snapshot of the data that we're providing to you, custom tailored to what it is you're interested in. And
so
then
not just a KMZ, a KML network link, so that it ties back to continuously updates. That's one thing I think that's underplayed about the, not to go out of side tangent, I think that's always underplayed about Google Earth. Essentially when Google released that product, there was two products that came in with it: Google Earth, and then the KML technology that became an OGC standard, that people don't realize. I think it's underpinned in the value of what that file format was capable of doing beyond just sending a file. It's not just a shape file. It can do a lot more than that. But yeah, right. That's so you hit a little pin in my background there.
Well, and we get that feedback from a lot of people because this is a failing on industry. I shouldn't say failing. I don't want to be overly harsh and critical, but this is something that industry struggles with a lot. Is we come up with a fantastic idea and we develop that into a technology, and we look at the type of problems that can address, but you're still kind of starting from that technological foundation that, hey, here's what we set it up to do. So now we got to try and shoehorn that into the various different problem sets that we're trying to address. And we kind of took a little bit of a different approach when we built Odin. We sat back and looked at all of the various different flash talks, everything at the GeoInt Symposium. Anytime the directors would talk, various different industry people, we listened to our own analysts, and they always tell you exactly what they want. They talk about not wanting another platform. They talk about data as a service. They talk about being able to access open content inside the building, on the high side, or all these various different things. And we said, okay, well, let's see if we can build something that actually hits all those pain points. And when you do that, you realize that a lot of these customers, when they talk, they're in essence they're defining their unicorn. Hey, if I could have anything, this is what I want. And if you set out to just build their unicorn right off the bat, you can get pretty close to it. And so By doing this as a data as a service model, it solved multiple problems. Not only did it get us away from that platform approach, or really the pain point they all have is the software approach. Nobody wants to buy software anymore. It's just it's a royal pain to integrate it. You have to go through all sorts of approvals. It's a long time frame. If you can just deliver data, just about everybody can ingest data and use it in their existing tool sets. But the other thing that solved for us is hey, all we're doing is sending, shape files, KMZ files, GeoJSON files, CSV files. Well, now we can start figuring out ways to push that more dynamically to the high side. So we actually went through a test and evaluation phase early on at NGA, where we were proving the concept of being able to push this data to the high side. And we got it to where we could push our data file updates to the high side on average every 9 to 10 minutes. And so what that allowed us to do is, you're sitting in a high side environment where you might not have ready access to the low side and to the internet to do your own searches or to use all of these other OSINT exploitation tools. Or even if you can, anybody who's sat in the building in any agency knows it's incredibly painful to switch between networks. And even if you find something on the low side, it's like, okay, well, now I got to get it over to the high side, and that can take you half a day to get that working. Well, by pushing all of this data directly to the high side, you never have to leave your environment. So when you're looking at fusing open source content with classified data streams, signals intelligence, fusing that with your high side available imagery, and not just low side commercial imagery. When you want to fuse all this data, it's already right there. You just pull it in as another layer into Google Earth Pro or ArcGIS, or again whatever systems you're using, and it's just they're available alongside all of your classified data streams. Makes fusing that information, it makes using that for, say, tipping and queuing to kind of, okay, well, now I'm going to go, look in all my high-end sources to see if there's anything that corroborates or disproves this story that just popped out on the internet. It makes it so much more convenient for an analyst or anybody who's, looking to incorporate open content into their daily reporting routine.
Yeah, no, you've, it's something I've been trying to advocate for years. It's always been a constant battle through, working with companies, technologies, even as when I was in the Air Force, trying to integrate those in. Once again, I love bringing in new technologies, but in order to buy advocacy with the user groups, it already has to work at least halfway with their current mission workflows. If it doesn't, you've automatically lost your customer right there. So, with that said, though, while you're on a mission to provide services, it makes sense that in order to understand the data yourself, you do come up with a portal, at least for your own self, to understand what you're looking at. So I definitely understand that perspective too. So as a company, you will eventually come up with some type of visualization, some type of portal, some type of hub, so that you can see the data, not necessarily for a breakout customer who might need something like that, but you need to interpret it before you send it out the door. So as much as the analysts need just the services, you need to be able to define what that's going to look like on their side. So.
Right, and with the portal, we do have a portal. I don't want to just kind of push that off to the side. Initially, I don't want to say it was an afterthought, but it was something that we put together more for people on the go, people who 90% of the time they might work inside the building at an agency, and now they're remote users for a portion of their time, and also anticipating commercial users down the road, less sophisticated clientele, people who don't have access to a broad suite of tools for analysis. How can we provide them some relevant, useful visualization of this data? That's how the portal started off, and we kept building on it, and it's a very robust portal. We're using all of our own visualizations for that, but it's a good thing we did, because now kind of transition to what's going on with COVID-19, and you find everybody, if you're not deemed mission essential personnel, everybody's gone down to a skeleton crew. So now so many people are sitting at home, and the big question, and I'm sure you've heard this asked a million ways, and just spend an hour on LinkedIn and you'll see this is what everybody talks about is how can you support teleworking? And a lot of the focus that you see is on collaboration tools. How can you get your teams to work together? How can you transfer information? What's the latest way to VPN tunnel into a particular system? And that's all well and good, but that only kind of addresses one part of your process. How do we work together and how do we exchange data? What it doesn't really do is kind of address the mission end of that. So I'm sitting at home and I'm a geospatial analyst and I'm supposed to be reporting on a particular AO. How the heck do I do that when I've been basically denied a lot of the unique exotic data streams that I have available to me inside the building that really provided me that tipping and queuing. You can provide a geospatial analyst, your entire commercial imagery holdings so they can work in an unclassed manner. But, if you're focused on an area, say the size of Syria, where do you start? You get your morning coffee. Well, okay, what do I look at today?
No, it's not about handing someone a location. It's about gathering all the information about that location so I can get a head start of, all right, what's actually going on here that I need to focus on? And what is critical and what does change look like before I look at this image?
Exactly.
I need to write those reports to understand what's been going on from a trend perspective, not just identify everything from scratch and it's like, okay, there's a bunch of buildings and I think this is what this is. You gotta have some kind of reference point to start off from.
And that's what Odin can provide. Is it gives you the situational awareness. It gives you, hey, here are the events that are occurring now. And if you see a news story pop up, or it can just be, the nice thing about when you have a open source discovery and collection tool as powerful as ours is, when you talk about getting ahead of the news cycle, which has always been a struggle, right? And, trying to get to things before they pop up on CNN.com. Well, all of those stories, the genesis is an event. And typically the first person on the scene these days, 2020, they pull out a phone and they say, oh my God, that just happened. And we can get it right at the source now, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, whatever that is, we can collect that. We can georeference it and very accurately, especially if someone has their geotagging turned on an image, we automatically read that and we can present that to an analyst that says, hey, before this now bubbles up to the local news and that gets sent up to, all these different levels. And, half the day later, now it's a news story that's, piqued our interest. We can pretty much tell you within minutes of an event happening, hey, this has now occurred on Twitter. This meets the criteria that you're looking for. Here it is. And now you can go and start pulling up, all your various different imagery. And when we talk about teleworking today, that's the power of having a portal like ours. Is, certainly you can access and download the KMZs and everything, but you can use, Odin's portal as essentially a watch center. As events happen, they will pop up right in your screen. You can say, oh, well, that's in my AO, and you go and you click on that and you can see what's relevant and occurring really on a minute-to-minute basis. And it's worked out great for us. A lot of our analysts were, sent home to telework. And, the other challenge that everybody's having is as well, okay, my particular mission when I sit inside the building is X, and it's really difficult to do outside the mission. Well, that doesn't mean you have to go home and, just, twiddle your thumbs and play with your kids all day. I encourage you playing with your kids. Mine are upstairs. But, you can find other ways to be a productive intelligence analysis or analyst. And you might not be doing what you normally do inside the building, but that doesn't mean you can't, generate relevant, useful intelligence content on the areas that you're normally sitting on. So, put something in analyst hands, a tool like Odin to say, hey, here's everything that's popping up. And you're sitting at home, you have access to GNOME, you have access to commercial imagery, you have access to all these other things that you can now start saying, okay, yeah, I'm going to do an analyst job here from the comfort of my own home. And we're seeing a lot of success, not only with the Skyris analysts who are sitting at home, but we have a government partnership right now who are evaluating Odin. And so we have Blue Badgers who are sitting at home and using Odin as part of their workflow today as well.
So just to talk a little bit about some of your other expertise, especially about imagery before, how does imagery connect to Odin? How does some of the work that you're doing with imagery tie into Odin?
So that would be something that we're looking at in a future capability, and it's not something that we probably want to develop in-house. What we're more interested in is as we see Odin get more widespread adoption, basically just setting up the interfaces to
Okay.
commercial imagery sources. So there are a lot of imagery content providers out there, small sat companies, et cetera, and we would like to. And this isn't a model that we've developed. There are other platforms that do this, where you can access the imagery directly from our portal, via various different links to where you say, hey, here's an event. Now I want to go and order an image or just pull it from my available commercial imagery pool. So setting up those interfaces through our portal, that would be kind of, something that we see Odin doing in the future. But that's, again, in the confines of our portal.
And the reason I ask is you mentioned, you're working on, you do imagery algorithms, and there's a lot of, I guess you could say, the last trend in the recent years has been folks moving away from even ordering imagery individually, and they just care about tying in the insights or trends and detections from imagery directly in platforms such as what you're offering here. How can I tie it together with all the other open content out there to produce answers or tell me a story of what's actually going on in areas of my interest?
Right, and as we look at what are our R&D priorities, that would be kind of where you hit that crossroad and say, okay, now am I going to try and be a platform, because that's all functionality that you're building in, that now you're relying on a user to use your system to make those connections, or do we want to stay on the, hey, we're a data as a service provider, we want to deliver content to you, and let somebody else develop the platform that fuses all that data together. And I think we see ourselves more as that we want to be a content provider. Certainly we can build a lot of functionality into our portal, but then that's only accessible on the low side. If you want to start bringing that into the high side, well, now you're okay. Now we have software. Now there's something you have to install, and now you're tied into our platform, which opens up a whole other can of worms, getting it to interoperate with all your various tools. So I don't know if we see ourselves going down that path right now. Certainly, it's something that we could look at in the future, but that's where you get that fine line of what do we want to, how much do we want to invest on the portal for visualization versus additional capabilities to enhance the overall collection stream that Odin is reporting on.
Well, as we wrap up here, I have one last topic to bring up with
Sure.
you is how has the current crisis affected your operations, perhaps work that has come out of Odin, and what can you tell people on how your company is dealing with what's going on?
Well, like I said, we've been super fortunate. We were bracing initially for, okay, what's going to happen if we don't get telework authorization, if people are sent home, who's going to be mission essential? And while we've had a very limited number of people who've been deemed mission essential as far as, going into the building, the various clients that we work for, we've had all of our people authorized to do telework. And that's because we've been able to work closely with our customers to either redefine what we're able to do, or by showing them usefulness. Hey, we can use tools like Odin in addition to free open source tools, tools that you provide us in the unclassified realm to do relevant intelligence content. So before we kind of got tasked with, or before the word came down that, hey, this is what we're going to do, we actually launched a pilot program internally to turn several of our analysts loose at home using Odin, and told them just go out and do good intelligence reporting. And they were able to generate content that we were able to provide to our CORs and the customers to say, this is viable. And so that helped us get telework authorization. It's basically been, almost no change on our daily operations. And that in turn was used as a model to apply to, other entities, both on, the government side. Like I said, they're using some of those same ConOps and the Odin tool to do that. And we also extended the use of Odin throughout the crisis to some of the other contractors on our prime contract, even our competitors. So, and that was just a case of us saying, and we've done that free, by the way. And that was just a case of us saying, hey, we're kind of all in this together. This is really not a time to be looking at who can get ahead, who can who can one up each other. We've got to continue to support our missions, and so if we can help with that, absolutely, we're going to help with that. So we've reached out to some of the other primes on our contract, and some of them are using Odin as well.
That's great news, Mike, and that's awesome. You giving folks an opportunity to see what they can pull out with the current prices with Odin. With that said, is there any last minute tidbits you want to talk about, company, yourself, even before we wrap up?
No. I think we covered a lot of ground today, and I really want to thank you for having us on. We're a small business, and when you're a small business in this type of realm, it's always a struggle to get exposure. You don't have the big marketing budgets that some of the large businesses do. So when you're like us and you feel you're doing good work and you're generating good solutions, it's fantastic to have a podcast like yourself that reach out and give us a venue to talk about what we're doing.
Great. Well, this is Mike McGowan with Skyris, and once again, thank you for being on the show with us and giving us insights to your company and what you're doing in the industry. I'm Adam Simmons of Project Geospatial. Thanks for listening, everybody.